Welcome back to this week's Formula One Espresso News, brought to you by Coffee Corner Motorsport, Full Beans the podcast. This is, of course, the weekly news show that brings you all the latest from the paddock to the podcast via the shed. It's a 30-minute podcast where I talk about the latest of what's happening in the Formula One world. Now, it's been a quiet week for Formula One. It's not been that busy at all, so we haven't got too much to cover. So we're going to rattle through this one, and we might even get a quick episode. One thing from me, though, if you do get a chance, just hit that like, follow, subscribe button, whatever is available to you on the platform you listen to. It really helps people get visibility of the podcast and get this out to more people. And one thing I'm learning that people seem to enjoy it when they can see it and hear it, but it's getting it to the right people and getting it out there. So any help with that would be really appreciated. Just the same as the comments. If you want to leave a comment on the podcast, anything you want to see on the podcast, drop me a comment, drop me a message on social media. Always happy to do that. So without further ado, I'm Terry. You got me for 30 minutes. Grab your coffee, sit down, strap in, and let's give it some full beans. Right, we're going to kick off the show with Arvid Lindblad Super License. This season in response to Max Verstappen and his ban that he's kind of on the verge of getting. A lot of speculation about this online and to media outlets. Now, Red Bull put its application in a while back. They put it in all the way back in March. The FIA are notoriously slow to meet on things, and that's what a combination this is. Now, Arvid had the super license points before the start of the season. He obviously took part in the Oceania regional contest that was over the winter period, and he won that, which gave him enough points to apply for a super license. Now, Arvid isn't 18 until the beginning of August, so as per the FIA rules, after Max Verstappen got his super license, you've now got to wait and apply for a dispensation first, where you ask the FIA whether or not you can have one, and they decide whether or not you've demonstrated capability. Arvid has obviously had some success in Formula 2 since, obviously, the winter break, and he's got the required super license. So basically, the FIA have met and they said, yes, you can have a super license. Now, what this does is it gives Red Bull another option. It gives them another sort of string to the bow as such, and it also boosts up their pool of drivers, which is looking remarkably shaky after, of course, Checo and Daniel Ricciardo went and they haven't really replaced them. Will he be used if a ban comes into place? That's a big question, and no one really knows the answer to that because it relies on a lot of things. Max obviously getting a ban, whether or not they decide to promote Arvid over Iwasa, whatever they decide to do with this is, the big unknown. But ultimately, it's in line for 2026. They want Arvid in a car for 2026. Yuki's seat is looking increasingly unlikely to be renewed once that Honda money runs out at the end of this season. I think he's pretty much going to keep his seat for the rest of 2025 because that Honda money is paid for it. All the noise we're getting from Red Bull. You listen to Christian, listen to Helmut Marko. They're talking about supporting him. They're talking about, how it's really giving him time. Something they didn't give Liam, ironically. So I feel that money talks in Formula One, as we've always said, and Yuki is safe until the end of the season, although they haven't come out and said that. After this season, though, I think that'll be the end of it. That, brings other options. We've got question marks over Max Verstappen's future. We've got question marks over Liam Lawson's future. I think Isaac Hadjar, even though he's out of contract, will get a contract extension because he's been the standout performer in 2025 for me. Where he ends up remains to be seen. I'm sharing the sentiment of Nico Rosberg that I don't think a move out to Red Bull would actually be beneficial for him. I think he'd benefit from being big fish in a small pond and staying at Visa Cash Out Racing Bulls and being number one driver there, a bit similar to what Pierre Gasly did. But it's not a hard call to make, and I think there's going to be a clamour to get Isaac promoted up to be Max Verstappen's partner for next year. That, of course, leaves the seat at VCARB. That will most likely go to Arvid. Whether or not they keep Liam or make a switch and go with Iwasa, I don't know. It does leave them with two rookies if they do that, so I'm not too sure they'd be keen to do that. So Liam might get a stay of execution, but I do think that Liam's performances need to improve. He's not close enough to Isaac. He's got the same car. He's not performing. He looks shot on confidence. Reminds me of what Checo looked like last year, if I'm being completely honest. Well, I don't think they're bad drivers. I think they just haven't got faith and confidence, and it's just hit them hard. So for me, this is all geared towards 2026. He can, of course, take part in 3 practice sessions, which obviously you got to do 4 per team this year. So, from Red Bull's point of view, is obviously helpful. They've done a couple already. I think Isaac even counted as a couple. So it's not that they need to do it, but it gives them experience in the car. We know there's a bit of a gap in the F2 calendar coming up as well. So I think that with the European races they still got is playing a bit of a part on it. They can potentially draft Arvid in for that as well. And like I say, it does give them another option should Max Verstappen get a ban if he exceeds his penalty points in the next 2 races before anything drops off. So it kind of all fits, but it's not a request that was put on the back of we need to get him in the car because Max is facing the ban. It's one that the FIA have just notoriously taken far too long to decide on whether or not he can have one or not. So Arvid Lindblad, super license holder, can drive a Formula 1 car in either a practice session or in the race itself. Keep your eye on the name. He's the next big property coming from Red Bull. He will be, I believe, in a Formula 1 car for 2026. My guess is with Visa Cash App, if I'm honest, but strange things have happened. But keep your eye on that one, and let's see if that prediction turns out to be right. Right, O2 launch. So next bit of news I got is about the O2 launch. This was obviously in 2025. I went with Dad. It was at the O2 Arena. Lots to talk about this one and whether or not it's coming back for 2026. I did an article for this one over on coffeecornermotorsport.com. Shameless plug on that one. Over 10,000 people have been on the website in the last 30 days. A massive thank you from me for that one. Means the world to me to see people heading over to the website. So really appreciate your support with the articles. I know it's not for everyone. I know that articles are a bit of a niche market for some. But for me, as I explained before, it's really important. And seeing people head on over there and enjoying the content is really great. So quick side note from me, massive thank you for that one. But yeah, the O2 launch, I did an article on this one, like I said, it's being shelved for 2026. It was a Formula 1 media request. The teams weren't massive fans of it. It's not something they really wanted to do. They were forced into it due to contractual obligations. Next year, we got new regulations. We got preseason testing. It's spread over 3 sessions rather than just a normal 1 preseason test that we get. We know that starts at the end of January in Barcelona, which is a closed door session, but that test lasts for 5 days, of which the teams will be running any 3 of those 5 days. And with all of that combined, the teams don't want the hassle of having to organise a car launch with Formula 1 and finding a date that fits for everybody. So there's not a lot of appetite from the team to do it. They also lost out commercially on it by not being able to invite as many of their own sponsors as they could, not being able to tailor it to their own thing, being told what to do. We know that teams like to do different launches. Some do shakedowns, some do a big scale launch thing, some just do the car, and some hit the track as well. So all these different factors the teams weren't very happy with. Then, of course, there was the fan feedback. If you were like us, lucky enough to go, it was generally perceived to be quite good. But lots of issues over ticket allocation, ticket sales, how many went to sponsors, how you can get it, inflated prices, resale prices, availability, the fact it was just held in the UK, which kind of stifled people coming across to it. All these factors went into it. And I think that Formula 1 side that there just wasn't enough appetite to do it for 2026, and therefore decided the best thing to do would be to shelve it. They've not shelved it completely. They said it's something they might consider in the future, but as it stands, from what I'm seeing, hearing, reading, 2026 O2 launch isn't going to happen. We're going to go back to individual team launches and go back to seeing the teams do their own thing for next season, which I don't overly think is a bad thing, if I'm honest. Like I say, there didn't seem to be a lot for it. In terms of the event, we had quite a good time at the event. Lots of activations. We went to quite a few events. Lego activation, we went to Treads, which is recycled tyres that have been made into trainers and stuff. So there was lots of cool stuff going on. There was a good opportunity to meet people, hang out, chill out. I think the live sort of show was better than what it was on TV, from what I can gather. So I think there's an element of that. It's a bit like Monaco, isn't it? If you're at these things, they're better in person than what they are on TV a lot of times. So I think if you're a person who managed to go to a live event, you probably go, actually, I'd go again. If you're someone who, for the reasons I said, was unfortunate not to go, you're probably not too sad to see it missing from that point of view. But no O2 launch for 2026. That brings us nicely on to the 2026 calendar. Now, obviously, last week I did a podcast where I talked about I had a draft copy of this one. It did change ever so slightly, so I'm really happy that I stuck to my guns and didn't release it early. My biggest concern to release it early was someone books accommodation, they book travel based on a draft copy, and then go, well, actually, the dates have changed, and then you'd look like a bit of an idiot. And I wouldn't want anyone to waste their money. Everyone's money is hard earned and hard pressed at the moment. So last year I wanted to do was lose people money, so I held off for that one. I'm glad I did. There were some slight tweaks to it. But let's go through the calendar. Right, we're going to kick off in Australia. Now, this is, like I said last week, this is to do with Ramadan. So when Bahrain has Ramadan, Australia's got it in their contract, we divert back to Australia. So round 1 is Australia, round 2 is China, round 3 is Japan, then we go to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Miami, then we've got the first change, which is Canada. Now, Canada is being brought forward on logistical reason, and also for a move in the calendar that everyone was kind of asking for, with obviously the Indy 500. I know it clashes with the Indy 500. I know it's in the same sort of time zone. I know it's going to be an issue, but we're going to come on to that one in a minute. But for now, calendar's there. The team will freight this stuff up from Miami. They'll travel back because there's a couple of weeks break in it, but don't be surprised to see that one stay there. Weather is a bit dicey, I believe, in the sort of end of May for Canada, from what I led to believe. So, someone who's maybe local may be able to let me know if that's true or not. But I don't think it's the best sort of weather times. I think they get snow at the beginning of May and then potentially rain. So I'm not too sure what the plan is with that one. Then we've got the move of Monaco, which is now at the beginning of June. We then got the Spanish Grand Prix, or could be the European Grand Prix, whatever they decide to call it. But that is Barcelona's last one. The reason Barcelona is on there is because it's last year their contract. They wasn't too sure if Madrid was going to be ready. So rather than cancel Barcelona, they left it on there. So I know there's been a lot of talk about this one online as well. People sort of going, well, how come, Stefano and Dominicali said you can't have two races and Spain have got two. They've only got two for 1 year at the moment. Like I said, there is talk that one of them is going to be switched to what's called the European Grand Prix. That will allow them, when they move it to the rotational one at Spa, to be able to do some stuff with it. Barcelona may be an option for a rotational track as well. So lots of things going on behind the scenes. And of course, we lose not only Barcelona, but the Dutch Grand Prix as well, which I'll come on to when we get to that one. So there's going to be two gaps on the Formula 1 calendar for 2027, no matter what. Then we've got, obviously, Austria. Then we've got Silverstone. We've got Spa. We've got Hungary. Then we've got the summer break. Then we go into the Dutch Grand Prix. The Dutch Grand Prix is the last one and is the only one confirmed so far as a sprint race, I believe. Then we've got Monza. Then we've got Madrid penciled in. So the plan for Madrid is quite simple. So Madrid is going through some legal action as well as just being behind because of permits. So there are still question marks on it. Formula 1 have got a few options. One is to cut the calendar down to 23 races. They don't particularly want to do that. So their plan B is to use Imola as a backup plan. Now, they can do this two ways. They can either slide Imola straight into that beginning of September slot, or what they can do is they can move Barcelona into September and slide Imola into Barcelona's slot on the calendar. So a couple of options for Formula 1 if Madrid either gets stalled due to legal action or in fact doesn't get finished on time. They can bring in Imola either into Madrid's pace or into Barcelona's pace and slide Barcelona into the Spanish Grand Prix later on in the year. So keep your eye out for that one. As we get closer to the time, we start seeing if there's any worries about obviously finishing on time. I know they've done a couple of the show runs over the past week with Carlos Sainz there, getting some sort of excitement built for the Madrid ring, or Mad ring as they're going to call it. I think there's a lot of legal challenges going on. I saw the legal challenge going to the courts, so I'm not hugely convinced that it's going to be ready on time. But then we saw with Las Vegas, things can move very quickly and it can get finished very quickly with the right amount of money and the right amount of resources chucked at it. So I'm not overly concerned at the moment. We are then going to Baku, then Singapore, then Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, Qatar, and finishing in Abu Dhabi once more. So no real surprises for the calendar for 2026, really. We knew about the moves coming. Now, in terms of the Indy 500 clash, now I believe this only happens once every couple of years. I don't believe it's every year by moving calendar. So I think that's the big thing that is probably being missed online. So a lot of talk on this one. A lot of people are upset about this one because obviously you can't watch both of them. Will Buxton put out a tweet saying that if you change the time slightly, you'll be able to watch both. That may be what's happening, where Formula 1 and an Indy 500 are going to look at it and do some movement on it. I mean, ultimately, Formula 1 aren't really bothered what Indy 500 do, and vice versa. Indy 500 aren't really bothered what Formula 1 do. They've clashed with Monaco for so long anyway. The two Grand Prix have clashed as such, so there's never been a major issue with a clash. Obviously, the difference being in calendar, it's pretty much the same time zone, which makes it a little bit more tricky rather than being a European time zone. While it was in Monaco, you could normally watch it sort of back to back, I believe. That's not the case at the moment. Whether or not they do anything about it, like I say, I think it's a clash that only happens every couple of years, so I'm not too sure it's going to be too much for an appetite. Formula 1's answer to this will be, obviously, if you watch Formula 1 in the US, the chances are you're a subscriber, you've already paid for that. So even if you switched off for the Canadian Grand Prix and watched the Indy 500, the chances are you would have already paid your subscription for that month anyway. And then Formula 1 don't lose any revenue. So I think we've got to remember that as well. And like I say, Formula 1 aren't going to make their life around making everyone else's calendar easy. There's that arrogance that Formula 1 have got where they just go tough, isn't it? So like I say, no real surprises for me. Let me know in the comments if you're going to go to one. We're booking one. I've got a surprise for Dad, which I'm going to give him for Father's Day. We're already booked for one for 2026. I got in there early. I managed to get some accommodation, which is the biggest challenge. As I explained to those who follow the podcast, we tend to book flights and accommodation and then get tickets later on where we can. It's a much easier way of spreading costs to do it that way. Some people like to secure everything, which is cool, each their own. I'm normally of the mindset, as long as I can get somewhere to sleep and a flight there, the rest will follow that way. But for me, we've got one that we're going to, and it's not Silverstone. So yeah, let me know where you think we're going. Both this year, we've got one more to go to this year after Silverstone, and next year where I'm surprising Dad for Father's Day. And I'll see if I can film his reaction and post it. He's always a bit dubious now when he sees me with my phone, so I have to be a bit coy over how I surprise him. But yeah, I can't wait to do it. Then we're going to talk about reserve roles. I want to just touch on this one. This is obviously about Lance Stroll. So Lance Stroll is going to be fit for the Canadian Grand Prix. Now, there's a lot of speculation over this one. He's had a minor procedure, Aston Martin called it. Again, not gone into details. He then did a test in the previous cars at the Paul Ricard track. He passed that one with no issues at all. So therefore, he's been named to do it. So he's going to be in the car for his home racing calendar. And I was supposed to got me thinking about Felipe Drugovich and reserve roles. Now, Felipe is a former F2 champion. He's been Aston Martin reserve for a number of years now. Never had the opportunity to drive for them, but obviously he is heavily backed by Aston Martin. And I suppose the thing for me is, this is where the sort of the academies fall down for me, because if you align yourself with a Formula 1 team and then you don't get an opportunity with that Formula 1 team, you're kind of boxed into what you do, aren't you? We've seen drivers go off and do other things, and we've seen lots of drivers pop up in other series being quite successful, and you kind of wonder why they didn't get a chance in Formula 1. And the reality is, it's because of who they're aligned with, it's who their partnership is with, it's who their sort of F1 Academy sort of contract is with. So Felipe is a prime example of that. Now, we've seen people like Bortoletti get the drive at Sauber. A lot of talk about the Brazilian backing, a lot of talk about that being a big key factor in it. Felipe would have had that same backing if he had gone there, but obviously couldn't because he's tied into Aston Martin. The chances are that it's going to potentially rule him out of a Cadillac role as well, unless Aston Martin release him. So again, there's a lot of talk about, does it start for you? We know that you can get lucky with it, like Ollie Behrman. You can get an opportunity, which then pays you to play. He's obviously gone to Haas as part of the deal that they've got with Haas, being their engine supplier. Cadillac will be trying the same thing with Joe on the basis of their Cadillac's engine supplier when they enter next year as well. So for me, I just think that when you see so many drivers in F2, and I've been writing about F2, so I've been following it quite a bit this year. For probably the first time in a long time, people who know me will know I've not been following it as closely. But you see like Richard Durn and you see these up-and-coming drivers, and you think, that's great, he's performing really well. But as a McLaren reserve driver, where's his opportunities going to come from? Where's his chance going to come from? Where is that possibility of getting a drive? Now, yes, McLaren released Bortoletti to go Sauber, so the chance after the deal was right, they'd release anyway. But it just got me thinking that how many reserve drivers have we seen, where they've gone to a team and they're just stifled there because of who they're linked to and what they're doing. Last week we talked about Valtteri Bottas and his options. I do want to see Valtteri on the grid again, so it'd be interesting to see how that one comes up. But yeah, for me, it's just one of those things, isn't it? What do we do about, how do you break the contract for it? Like, if you're a Red Bull driver coming through, how do you, look at, well, if you're a Red Bull driver, you probably get a seat, but you know what I mean? If you break that contract and go elsewhere, how much is that going to benefit you career-wise, or how much actually is it going to hinder you? So, whilst I agree they've got a great role in terms of supporting drivers coming up into Formula 1, it does kind of make you think what happens after that, doesn't it? So, in terms of where we're looking at the future for him, if you've aligned yourself to this team, this brand, and you go, right, I'm a reserve driver for that, could you end up like Felipe, where you're always just going to be just sat there waiting for an opportunity? Then invariably, if that opportunity doesn't come, how do you go racing? Then you've got to find an alternative, haven't you? A bit like what happened with Mick Schumacher. So yeah, for me, no surprise to see Lance Stroll in the car. It was always going to happen. I did say at the time it was going to happen. So Lance Stroll will be in the Aston Martin for the Canadian Grand Prix. And I've still got 10 minutes, so what we're going to talk about, let's have a look at some track facts for Canada whilst we're here. So, this is what it says about Canada. We've got 4.361 kilometres, 70 laps. Previous winners are 2012, Lewis Hamilton, 2013, Seb, 2014, Daniel Ricciardo, 2015, 16 and 17 was Lewis Hamilton again, 2018 was Sebastian Vettel, 2019 Lewis Hamilton, and then 2022, 2023, and I believe 2024 was Max Verstappen as well. So yeah, very successful track for so many drivers. So this is what it says. It says This is a circuit that's made up of mainly medium speed corners, but it does, of course, have that one long straight at the end of the lap that's offered plenty of slipstream action over the years. And then it says, there are Formula One circuits built in open spaces like Silverstone, and others that are hemmed in by their surroundings like Monaco, all the home of the Canadian Grand Prix. Built on an island across the St. Lawrence River from Montreal, the plot is less than ideal as there's so little space, with the 1976 Olympic Games rowing course narrowing the plot behind the pits yet further. The approach to the first corner is through a right-hand kink, and there is often a concertina effect here on lap 1 that can catch out those behind. Running wide on the exit can put cars out of position for turn 2, where the track doubles back to feed the cars on to an arcing run between woods and water that is interrupted by a chicane and later a sharp left. The flow picks up again with just a right-left S's before the drivers reach the lap tightest hairpin. It's the perfect place for a driver at the inside in front of the grandstands, but it's also tight enough to make that move a gamble. The track then runs alongside the rowing lake, hitting its fastest point where cars top 195 miles per hour. It looks as though they're directly heading to the pits before having to brake hard for the lap's final corner, which is, of course, that right-left chicane and the wall of champions that we've all come to love. The first is the most likely place for overtaking, but the second is the most likely point for a collision with either a rival or the wall on the exit. Drivers getting it wrong have been frequent, hence the name of the wall of champion, as many former champions have come to clip it. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. There's not too much to say about Montreal. Weather dependent, of course. It's a track which has a mini climate, a bit like Silverstone, where the track just kind of throws up abnormal weather conditions. So don't be surprised on much rain. Rain will hit it and hit it hard. At the moment, there's nothing planned for Friday, less than 20% for Saturday, and around sort of 20% for the race itself is what it's currently saying. But for me, I think McLaren are going to be strong around here, especially with that big long straight at the end. Be interesting to see if the technical director on Flexi Wings actually prove to bring the pack a bit more closer or shake anything up. We know it didn't in Barcelona, but that doesn't mean it might not here. I'm not expecting a huge amount of updates. If you're a Ferrari fan, there won't be a lot of updates, if any, this weekend, so don't get excited about that one. A lot of talk about Ferrari and Fred Vasseur being under pressure. His contract's expiring at the end of 2025, so that's putting him under pressure. No talk of a renewal yet. We covered that one a few weeks ago as well. So for me, I think it's McLaren's. I think Max is going to be in the mix again, and I think that Mercedes will come into play being a lot cooler temperatures. It's hovering around the 20-degree track temperature, so that will bring Mercedes back into play after obviously the last sort of 3 races where they struggled with the heat. We know the Mercedes like running cooler conditions. They'd be hoping it stays cool and even maybe gets a bit wet to put Kimi and George back into contention for some podiums. That's for sure. But for me, I still think it's going to be a choice again between which McLaren driver is going to get the win, because I think it's going to be Oscar or Lando, and my money is still on Oscar to stretch that championship lead even further and put that pressure on Lando. So watch Lando win now, eh? That's what I've got this week. I'm not going to keep talking for the sake of it. That's about sort of 24, 25 minutes. So as always, once again, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever's available to you on the platform to listen to. I really appreciate all your support. I really appreciate everyone heading over to the website, everyone on social media. I've said before, I'm a one-man band. It is tough at times, especially with stuff going on. We've got lots of things going on outside of Formula One with the kids, and lots of things happening with appointments and medical stuff going on, and just life in general. So it is sometimes a little bit difficult to get timely updates out there. So I appreciate everyone for sticking with it, and I apologise if it's not as fast as you like. But as I said, I'm a one-man band on that one. So we got Silverstone less than 20 days away. Stay tuned for that one. There might be some exciting news coming up over what's happening at Silverstone. And yeah, as always, if you want to catch me in terms of fantasy formula, I'll be with Fanamp this weekend, as always, for their deadline stream, bringing you all the latest from the tech world. Tech Corner will be out over on Fanamp as well, and keep your eye out on the website for daily articles on Formula One news. So all of that shameless plug-in, that's the podcast, 25 minutes. You've been listening to Formula One Express News. I'm your host, Terry, and I will see you next week for next week's show. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great race weekend and enjoy.